All right, CNT125, Chapter 8, we're going to look at an example on how would you subnet a Class B network. So we're going to apply everything we did with a Class C, but we just have two octets to work with now. So everything we did before we're still going to apply, but we're just going to have to work with two octets now. Remember, we're going to create a chart that shows the network numbers, the usables, and the broadcast addresses. And remember, what we really want is the usables in the middle. Those are the numbers we can actually assign to things like router ports, switches, servers, printers, IP phones, etc. All right, so let's take a look. Class B. Class B, they figured out they need 20 subnets. So to do that, we're going to borrow 5 bits. 2 to the 5 is going to give us 32 subnets. Yeah, we're going to have some extras. 4 bits was not going to cut it. We only get 16 with that, so we got to do 5. So we're going to have some leftover slices of pizza or leftover slices of pie, if you will. That's just what it's going to be. So here, oops, I have a typo there with a Class C. It's actually a Class B network, 180.40.00. Here is the default subnet mask. Here's the default subnet mask in binary. We're going to borrow 5 bits. So we're going to borrow 5 bits from this portion right here, this third octet. Okay, so borrowing 5 bits, 2 to the 5 is going to give us 32 subnets. Here's my 5 bits borrowed right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to be left with 11 bits. Here's my 11 bits, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 2 to the 11, 2048. Okay, I could just keep doubling here to get that. 256, 512, 1024, 2048. That would give me my 11 bits, 2048, of which 2046 will be usable. So now I need to reflect what we've done. So we update our subnet mask. We had 16 bits here before. We add the 5, we end up with 21. So there's my CIDR notation update /21. My dotted decimal, I take this octet here, convert to decimal, I get 248, 248.0. So those would be the subnet masks I now use to reflect that we have borrowed 5 bits in this network. We're now going to pay attention to the borrowed bit place. We borrowed 5 bits left to right here. We borrowed to this place right here. This is my interesting bit. We borrowed to the 8 place value, so my subnets are going to go up by a factor of 8. We've borrowed the 8 place value, so my subnets are going to go up by a factor of 8. This is going to help with getting our chart rolling. So my third octet, I'm just going to focus on the third octet right now, the one we have done the subnetting in. And I'm going to start my subnet 0, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56. Now, this is obviously going to go on because we have 32 subnets. I just have this chart created. I always figure if you can do, the first 10 or so, the next 22 would be easy. Okay, so I'm just showing you the first handful here. This is the third octet. My subnets are going up by a factor 8, so there's my subnet numbers so far. Well, let's put the broadcasts over here. If this one starts at 0 and this one 8, this has to end at 7. This one's going to end at 15. This is going to end at 23. So let's plop those in over here. 7, 15, 23, 31, 39, 47, 55, etc. The next one over here is 64, so this is going to be 63. So there is my broadcast now. Well, that is just the third octet. So what we're going to do now is let's tag on the fourth octet. If we remember our rules, over here on the subnet ID or subnet network number, the host portion is all zeros. So what we can do is just literally tag on a .0 for the fourth octet. .0, .0, .0, .0. That's my fourth octet. Remember, the network number is all zeros in the host portion, so just tag on zeros here for the fourth octet, and I now have my network number completed. Okay. Now, if I remember my rule for the broadcast address was all 1s in the host portion. All 1s in the host portion. So if I tag on this last octet as all 1s, be .255, right? Over here, I can tag on .255 for the fourth octet, and I would now have the complete broadcast address for these subnets. So if I remember my rules from before, this gets pretty easy to tag on the 0 for the host octet over here and 255 for the host octet over here. The usables in the middle, these can be a tripping point. So slow down and make sure you pay attention on these. Okay. For the usables, we are going to go one more than this this number and 1 less than this number. So I always like to say pretend for this part, pretend like this is the odometer in your car. If this is the odometer in your car, the number over here is the one that increases first. So to get that number here, I'm going to increment this octet, 0.1. If I do it here, it's kind of like my car going up by 10 miles at a time or 100 miles at a time. That's not right. That's not acceptable. So I need to increase this last octet by 1 to get the first usable. 0.1, 8.1, 16.1, 24.1, 32.1. I'm incrementing that far right column by 1 for each of these usables. For the broadcast side over here, I'm going to get the last usable, I need to decrease this over here by 1. So again, pretend, we're not going to do this, but pretend we drive backwards for a mile in the car. If I did that, theoretically, again, don't do that, it's not safe, but if I did that, theoretically, this over here would decrease by 1. The far right column on my odometer would decrease by 1. So over here, 7,254. 15,254. That is 1 less than this broadcast number. 23.254, 31.254. That's that last slot, that last number that's decreasing by 1. That is how I get my last usable. So here is my usables for a Class B. Incremented by 1 over here on the far right, decreased or decremented by 1 over here on the far right to get my usables. And again, if I plug this into a subnet calculator, plugging in the full IP, I see that, 180.48.0 is the network number, 180.48.1 is the first usable, 180.40.15.254 is the last usable, and then 180.40.15.255 is the broadcast address for that subnet. That's what I see. So with a Class B, I'm doing all the principles I did with a Class C, but I just have the extra octet to keep track of. So that's why I started back here. Start with what you know, plug in your networks, plug in your broadcasts, add zeros for the 4th octet here for the host portion. Host portion goes to all zeros, so in this case I tag on the 4th octet as a 0. Broadcast tag on the 4th octet is 255, all ones. And then to get my usables, 1 more over here, drive my car down the road 1 mile, that increases by 1. Over here, drive back. Don't drive backwards for a mile. But theoretically, drive backwards for a mile. This is going to decrease by 1, 254. That gets me my last usables. That is the tripping point that people run across with dealing with Class B or Class A for that matter. That's how you tackle that. So there is something in a Class B network.